I want to give a special shout out to all my patrons first. Thank you so much to my Bibliospren, Bibliohowlers, and my Bibliomancers. It means a lot to me that you give me your extra support for my passion and hobby. Hi everyone, Petrik here. Today's video will be about my best books of 2023 so far. To be specific, for the second quarter. So yeah, today's video, as mentioned in my first best books of 2023 so far video, I want to try making a quarterly favorites video. So yeah, today's video will be about all the best books that I finished from the beginning of April until the end of June. So Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is not counted in the equation yet. That being said, at the end of this video, I will talk about what's my #1 best book of the year so far. Yeah, and also I will probably mention the most disappointing read as well. But before that, I will rank the 5 best books that I read from the month of April until the month of June, until the end of June. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I know that this is a bit late because many booktubers have posted their list for their favorite books of 2023 so far. But better late than never. And before I get started, I want to mention some statistics first. This is for the second quarter. My reading statistics for the second quarter of this year. And quantity-wise, it's not too good. Actually, regarding quality, some of them are not too positives as well. In fact, I gave only, in total, from the month of January, from the beginning of January until the end of June, I have gave only 4 5 stars rating out of all the books that I read. And if we're talking about quantity for the second quarter of the year, I finished 15 novels. Yeah, that's not too big of a number, especially compared to many booktubers out there. And yeah, on top of 15 novels, I did manage to finish 25 volumes of manga. So in total, that's 40 books, 15 novels and 25 volumes of manga. For the best manga that I read in the second quarter, it's definitely, again, reading all the chapters in Jujutsu Kaisen up to the latest chapter. And speaking of Jujutsu Kaisen, the season 2 has finally begun. And I'm so excited. I will definitely continue to watch the anime adaptation. And I think that's it for the introduction. Now, let's get to the main highlight of this video. Time to talk about the 5 best books that I read within April until the end of June. At the number 5 spot, I have The Bone Shard War by Andrea Stewart. This is the third and the final book in the Drowning Empire trilogy. The Bone Shard Daughter, the first book in the trilogy, is one of my favorite fantasy debut, and I am happy to say that The Bone Shard War provide a very satisfying conclusion to the Drowning Empire trilogy. And this is the biggest books out of the trilogy. And although there were some parts in the middle of the book where I felt that the plot did feel a bit too repetitive in its structure, but at the end of the day, I do think that The Bone Shard War, as the final book of a trilogy, definitely gave what I wanted. It gave closure, it gave a very satisfying conclusion to all the characters' arc. There were incredibly emotional moments, and the end was, yeah, it was very satisfying. And I want to say congratulations to Andrea Stewart for completing your first trilogy, and it's such a great trilogy. I am definitely looking forward to reading more of Andrea Stewart's books in the future. But until then, the tale of Lin, Jovis, Falue, and Mephi and all of the other characters have definitely entertained me, and yes, I had a great time reading this trilogy. And moving on to the next spot, we have Mother of Learning Arc 3 by Nobody 103 or Domagoj Kurmaic. This is the third and the penultimate volume in the Mother of Learning web novel series that have been divided into 4 volumes and published by Raidmark Creative. I will be reading the 4th and final volume this month, probably within this week. Yeah, and I'm very excited about that. But the entire trilogy, from the first volume up to the second and third volume, all of them have been immensely entertaining for me. They are so good. It is a great example of a time travel fantasy done right, with a coming of age and also a magic school trope included in it. And the third volume, the penultimate installment, have provided so many answers to some questions that I have. It gave revelations, and also it showcased one of the infamous brother of Zorian Kaczynski, the main character of the series, and it was so Well, it was so fun. It was so fun seeing Zorian met his brother, this infamous brother of his. But although many questions have been answered, there were still some questions that I am sure will be answered in the fourth and the final volume. And one of the things that I love so much about Mother of Learning Arc 3 is that some things from Volume 2 that I thought would be filler came back in this one, proving that none of the books, none of the scenes and sequence in the previous 2 volumes were fillers. They were all important, even if I or other readers did not agree with the executions, but they were all important to the plot lines. And more importantly, Zorian Kaczynski character development. Plus, for the first time in the series, this third volume is the first time we have kinda like a new point of view chapters from a new characters. Yeah, that's all I will say without giving any spoilers. But yeah, suffice to say that I highly enjoyed this one, and I think this series, especially on BookTube, is criminally underrated. And I think many readers, especially those who love coming of age, magic school, and also time travel in their stories, definitely should take a look into this one. I assume and I hope the fourth and the final volume will provide a very satisfying conclusion to the series. And at the number 3 and the number 2 spot, well, let's just say that both of them tied at the same spot because I just talked about them in my June wrap-up video. But first, I will talk about Aiduel by Daniel T. Jackson. Yeah, this is the second book in the Islington saga. This is the sequel to Islington. Islington is a character-driven fantasy debut. I think this series do count in the grimdark subgenre because of how morally gray and, well, questionable the characters are, the main characters, especially Alana, which has, well, she has turned into a villain in Aiduel. She is definitely a villain in my opinion. She's one of the most selfish and despicable main character I have ever come across, and I hope bad things, yeah, I really hope bad things will happen to her, because seriously, if you have read this book, if you have read this series, you will know why I said that, because she's just so awful, so selfish. And what's incredible about this is that her storyline, despite how awful and despicable she is just so compelling. And this applies not the awfulness, but the compelling side applied to all the POV characters. Based on my experience with the series since the first book, Daniel T. Jackson really knows how to keep the page turning. One of the things that he loves to do with his narrative is that every chapter ends on a cliffhanger, and it makes me always want to continue reading. And I know that we won't get back to that particular POV characters immediately, but it gave me something to look forward to. Plus, the entire series have always been character driven, and they're so well written in my opinion. Definitely love Aiduel, and this one is so much more action-packed and bloody. It's so much more bloody compared to the first one. I'm truly excited to read the sequel as soon as it's ready. I have no idea when that will be, but I know that it will be worth the wait, especially after the ending that we get to see in Aiduel. And the next book I will be talking about at the number 2 spot or the number 3 spot together with Aiduel. Pick whatever you want to pick. This is Farilane by Michael J. Sullivan. This is the second book in the Rise and Fall trilogy, which is the bridge series that connect the Legends of the First Empire to the Rairia books. And yes, as I said in my June wrap-up video, this means that I have read everything by Michael J. Sullivan, and I can safely say that Farilane definitely rank up there as one of his best books. Yeah, even up there with some of the best one in his Rairia books. And that's really some of the biggest praise that I can give to Michael J. Sullivan. I have read 18 books. 18 books? Yeah, 18 books in the world of Elan, and it is just so impressive. What happened here, I cannot say too much about it because it is spoiler, but if you have read Legends of the First Empire, at least Legends of the First Empire, the impact that the ending of this book has is just incredibly impactful. So impactful. Even more so if you have actually read the Rairia Revelations to the end. I'm talking about the scene with Blizzard here. Yeah, that's really as vague as it gets. But those who have read Farilane will know what I'm talking about. This book, Farilane, is such a lovable character, and we get to learn even more about Kile, Again, Kile is a character that you will know if you have read Legends of the First Empire, and I love learning more about Farilane, Kile, and the world, and this series kind of works like a sequel series to the Legends of the First Empire. It actually follows up to everything that has happened in that 6-book series. And yeah, I love this one, and I heard from plenty of fans of the series that the 3rd book in the series, Esrahadon, is even better than Farilane. And yeah, I will be reading Esrahadon hopefully within this month. And finally, the best book that I read in the 2nd quarter of 2023 will have to go to The Dragonbone Chair by Ted Williams. Yeah, I absolutely love this classic fantasy books. I know that many people have mentioned that the slow pace 200 pages, the first 200 pages was a bit dreadful for them to go through, but it wasn't the case with me. I love every moment of reading The Dragonbone Chair, starting from the first page to the last. The world building was intricate and absolutely incredible. I can definitely see how this have paved the way for many popular and, well, high praise epic fantasy series these days. I think Ted Williams is a name that deserves more acclaim, more recognition, and definitely more popularity in the adult science fiction and fantasy landscape, especially on BookTube, Goodreads, and social media in general. You just don't see people talk about Ted Williams as much as, let's say, George Martin, Brandon Sanderson, and all the popular and highly praised fantasy authors. And I think that's a shame, because I think Ted Williams' prose is truly one of the best in the genre. And speaking of his prose, if you love Robin Hobb's style of writing, this is what people pitch to me. If you love Robin Hobb's style of writing, I think you will have a good chance of liking Ted Williams' prose as well. There are plenty of similarities in style, and also the pacing are, well, they're slow, but it's just something worth savoring, in my opinion. I love reading his writing. Simon is a great character. I love his friendship with Binabik, and all the details regarding the memory, sorrow, and Thorn, the 3 great swords, and also Ineluki the Storm King, and all the iconic figures of the past. All of them were just a pleasure for me to read through. I have read The Stone of Farewell, but I do think that The Dragonbone Chair is a better book compared to The Stone of Farewell. I will try to start reading To Green Angel Tower this month, but I do not think that I will be able to complete that within this month. Let's see whether I will be able to do that or not. But yeah, this is the best book that I read in the 2nd quarter of 2023. So that's the top 5 best books that I read in the 2nd quarter of 2023. But if we combine everything from the month of January until the end of June, what's the most disappointing books that I read? And yes, after this, I will mention the best book that I have read within this year so far. As for the most disappointing book, unfortunately, it will have to go to A Crown of Swords by Robert Jordan. Yeah, this is the 7th book in the Wheel of Time series, and many people have mentioned that this is the beginning of the slog portion of the 14-book series, and I have to agree with them. This book, it took me more than a month. I think it took me more than a month to actually finish. For those of you who don't know, that's really the longest time I ever spent on reading a book. The longest number of days I ever spent on reading a single book. More than 30 days. That is insane. I've shared my full thoughts regarding Crown of Swords. If you want to know the things that I did not like about it, well, you can check out that review. It's not that it's all bad, but you know what? After loving The Fires of Heaven and also Lord of Chaos, and then experiencing this significant downgrade, it was a challenge. I hope that Book 8, A Path of Daggers, which I will start probably next month or in September, I'm keeping my fingers really crossed that it will be better than A Crown of Swords. Some have mentioned it's better, some have mentioned it's worse. Let's see which side I will belong to. As for the best book of the year, I think if you have been following my channel, you will know what book I will choose. And yes, I've been talking about this book non-stop ever since I finished it in the month of March. And it is The Will of the Many by James Islington. This is hands down the best book that I read within this year so far, at the number 1 spot. I have no idea whether this will reign as the number 1 spot up to the end of the year or not, but it has a big potential. This is a Roman-inspired epic fantasy series that is reminiscent of Red Rising by Chris Brown, but it's definitely still its own thing. The Will of the Many is one of the best books I have ever read, and yeah, this is the best fantasy book with the magical school trope I have read since The Name of the Wind by Petrik. It is that good. If you haven't read this one, do pick it up. I think it is absolutely amazing. It is a masterpiece, and I do have faith that we are in the presence of a new book that will become a classic in the fantasy genre in the future. So that's it. That's my list for the best books of 2023 so far. The first half of the year can definitely be still categorized as a great reading 6 months, and I hope the second half of this year will provide an even better reading experience, because I love reading, and believe me, it does not give me pleasure to actually give a book bad rating. But you know what? Honesty must be given, right? But anyway, do let me know what you think about my list for the best books of 2023 so far. And of course, do tell me what are the best books that you've read within this year so far. Which book took the #1 spot? So yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.